concept in use. Object-oriented programming, thread concepts. Thread is a small process, right? If you want to do any process in your mobile or your system, that is called as a thread or task, right? The same thing it will be used in object-oriented programming. We are telling that will be a thread, right? It is a small process. When you are writing something or you are going to use your logic into your program means that is called as a thread. And also in your logic, you are going to make a one or more methods, right? Especially I want to execute this method at first, or this method at first, second, or this method at third. Means you have to give your prioritization, right? In the priority concept, it will be used. And also, if you want to execute each method in a thread concept by using creating a thread and also start the thread, right? If you are starting the each and every class, right, and also you are making object for every class, and also you are making a thread to which thread going to run. This is my first thread means you are telling that is a thread 1, right? You are making an object and also I am going to start this thread. And also if you are going the second thread means you are going to start that second thread. So each and simultaneously it worked, right? It has to work. And also simultaneously the thread will have to execute, right, at one time. Also the thread will be run in a run method, right? Once you are making an object in your class, you are making the thread is my object. My object name is thread means you are making the object name as thread. And also if you want to initiate your thread means you are going to start the thread by thread dot start or t1 dot start method, right? Once you are giving start method means the thread will going to start, right? But you have to write your thread coding in the run method itself, right? Once you are going to write your coding into the run method only, it has to execute and also it has to start the thread method. So this is the connection between the thread and the run method. So simultaneously it will be work, right? We are going to give an example, right? The normal example. In your school days, you are giving some formulas, right? The tables. So the same tables will be used as a simultaneous process and also multi-threading concept. In this table example, have simultaneously they are written the tables from 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6, right? So each and everything has a thread, right? This is the thread 1, 2, thread 3, thread 4 and thread 5. Which thread completed first? We are starting simultaneously, right? Which thread is going to completed at first? Thread 1. What about thread 2? Which is going to execute at thread second? Thread 2. The third, thread 3, fourth, thread 4, thread 5, then thread 4, I think. So we are starting the execution at, or we are making the execution or completing the starting the thread at one time itself, that is simultaneously. We are starting the concept of thread or writing the tables at simultaneously at one time itself, right? But the execution will be executed or completed, the sequence will be changed because this thread is completed at first. So the sequence manner will be this is first, this is second, this is third, and this is fourth, then this is fifth, right? So according to our execution, once you are going to give a simultaneous execution of your program, you have to use multi-threading concept, right? Once you are writing some coding in your logic or in your method, that will be executed a single time execution. This method will be executed at first, then after completion only the second method you are giving means that will be executed. So in this, what is the benefit means you have to execute all the things in the simultaneous manner. So once in a single time, all the execution is going to start and also completed according to the speed, right? So if you want to execution or prioritize execution means you have to giving this thread will be executed at first. I am going to write. So at that time the second and third, fourth, fifth thread will be waiting for the response of the first thread completion. So at that time we are giving some time delay, right? For starting a thread we are giving start method. So you have to wait some time means you are giving sleep method. In this sleep method we are giving some milliseconds time. That will be 400 milliseconds or 1000, 2000, whatever milliseconds you want means at that time the some which thread is going to execute means that thread only executed and working. So at that time the remaining thread 2, 3, 4, 5 they are all waiting for the seconds of sleep. What is the time you are giving in the sleep method? It has to wait. So this is a multi-threading concept and also the synchronization. That is the time delay. Right? That is prioritization. Which thread I am going to prioritize. So at that time it has to sleep for some times. Right? This is the concept of multi-threading and thread concepts. In this thread we are giving a multi-threading concept also, and if you want to execute this method will be first and this method will be second means you are giving order, that by means of sleep method. Later we have to see the wait and notify method, right? For the new my thread 1 class. Though what is the class we have discussed? This my thread 1 we are creating a object as t1 and also we are passing a object value or the parameter value. So already we are giving a parameter as the table class. So here also we are making a object. So this object will be sent or substitute as a parameter in the new thread 1. The same way we are using my thread 2. We are creating a table T and we are passing a constructor as a parameter into a class name. Then we have to give a particular instance value, access the particular instance value, and also write a run method, and in the logic itself we are passing a value that will be 100. So we are making another object T2. We are passing the same object value. So I am giving order that T1 will be started at first. Then T2 will be started at second. At the time what will be happen? The two thread will be executed at the same time. But once I am giving a sleep value, that will be a 500 milliseconds means once the loop value executed at first, it has to wait for 500 milliseconds. Then it has to execute the second value. Then it will be wait for 500 milliseconds. So what will be your output? What is the n value? In this T1, what will be the n value? 5. So the 5 will be processed. The 5 will be your n value. So I am giving 5. So logic will be 5 star I. What is your I value? At first that will be 1. So 5 star 1 value will be 1. So this is your output. Right? At the time the thread will be wait for 500 milliseconds. So it has to wait. Once you are not giving any sleep method, right? Any time delay means it has to execute 5, then 10, 15, 20, 25. Right? But it has to, that logic will be, has to wait for 500 milliseconds. At that time what will be happen? The second thread will be going to execute. So what is the n value for this T2? 100. I am giving the parameter value as 100. So the n value will be 100. So 100 into I. The I value will be 1. The first time this will be 1. So 100 into 1, 100. So it has to print 5, then 100. It has to wait for 500 milliseconds. And then what happened? The T2 going to start, right? The T2 value will be executed. Already n value will be 5 and I value will be 1. So it will be incremented by 1. Then the I value will be 2. The I value will be 2. The n value 5. So 5 star 2 equal to 10. So that 10 will be printed here. So it has to wait for 500 milliseconds. So it has to execute T2. So at the time, what is the n value? N value 100. What is the I value? 2. So 200. So that 200 will be executed here. So this will be wait for 500 milliseconds. Then what is the I value? Sorry, N value 5. What is the I value? 3. So 15 will be printed here. Then what is the N value? 100. What is the I value? 3. So 300 will be executed as your output. Then it will be 20, 400, 30, 25, 500. So till that it will be executed. Then automatically the for loop condition will be fails. It has to eliminate or it has to left from the for loop. So your output will be 5. Tell what is the output? 5, then 100, 10, 200, 15, 300, 20, 400, 25, 500. So normally what happens? It has to print the I value whatever you are giving. The I value will be 1 and the N value will be 5 means it has to execute 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. The second method 100, 200, 300, 400 and 500. So this is normal execution. So once you are giving a thread and giving some milliseconds value to wait for that particular thread means it has to execute the first thread, then it wait for 500 milliseconds. Then it has to execute the second method. So you know the difference. What is happening without thread and with thread, right? It has to wait for some milliseconds. If you want your logic has to wait for some milliseconds, this operation will be going to happen means you are giving some time delay. So this is the example for threads, right? And also multi-threads. You are using 2 threads in the same example, right?